Welcome to the MPG Podcast, where your host, John Grabio, talks racing, driving, training, and cars with Newman Watts racing driver, Jordan Missig. And now, here's John and Jordan.
Well, welcome to the MPG Podcast. John Graybill, along with
Jordan Missig here again for another episode on the MPG Podcast.
We are coming to you today from the MPG Garage.
The Garage Mahal.
The Garage Mahal, that's right. The topic of today is a couple things, but they all kind of revolve around a small vehicle, I guess.
Yes.
We call this a kart.
Go-karts, yes.
Spelled with a K.
Not like your
Golf cart.
Carts or like the cart like you're going on a shopping cart or you're purchasing something with a C.
That's
no,
right.
It's with a K.
It's with a K. This actually happens to be a sprint cart. Also, the plastic stuff is known as it says right here, CIK.
CIK, yeah.
CIK, which is international, again, this International Federation of Racing. This is the type of body work that they have on these type of sprint carts. This happens to be a Margay Ignite kart, and so the engine, the unique thing about these karts, these are the most popular karts racing right now. Mm-hmm. How do you like them? It's a 4-cycle engine, right?
Yep, four-cycle engine, yeah, with a Briggs & Stratton 206 motor strapped to it for the Ignite K3 Margay chassis. This is a really good starter series for anybody who's trying to get into karting itself. You know, this is not like over expensively priced. It's very affordable to the average family, as well as, you know, these karts, they can get upwards to around 50 to 60 miles an hour. So that's pretty decent speed, especially when you're sitting 2 feet off the ground. So, you know, you're getting up to high speeds there. But they do come in, the good thing about Margay Racing is that they have different types of karts for different age groups. They have karts from kid karts, K2 karts for little rookies. They have a junior kart, and then you get up to the master and senior class, which is the Ignite K3 that we have in front of us. But there's also other brands of karting too. You can go into 2-stroke karts, which are 100cc or 125cc, and then you get up to like an X30, which is like what Pragas have. And then there are some shifters as well, which get up to even quicker speeds, can get up to maybe even like 90 miles an hour. And then you have laydown karts that can get up to around 110 miles an hour at some of these big tracks. But the main part of the show is that we're going to be talking about is just small average karts that are be around 40 to 50, maybe 60 miles an hour here and there, give or take what track you're at.
Yeah, these karts are under $5,000. They are fast. They're somewhat easy to work on, I guess you might say. Mm-hmm. The interesting part of that I wanted to dive into today is, so you drive, it's not here right now, but you drive an F3.
Yeah.
Very fast, couple levels below IndyCar, mm-hmm. Race car. However, you also like to participate in, to use your words, this entry-level karting. Mm-hmm. The entry-level karting, at this level, the competition is massive. There's no barrier. There's some barriers to entry for some people, but the barrier to entry is very low.
Yeah.
So you get massive competition. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that I've heard you talk about. Why are you racing? So today we just finished the race. Why are you racing this? You're racing F3s and these real famous tracks. You're going. Last week you raced in Mid Ohio.
Yep.
And next week you're going to go to.
So
we're going to talk about that
later.
later.
Why am I still racing in go-karts?
Why?
Because it's something fun around this country club, especially where we're at. It's something fun to be able to do on an off week that I'm not racing.
At the Audubon Country Club, which
Yes.
is a go-kart facility plus other major road courses.
Race at this track called Kart Circuit Audubon. We just race here every now and then because there's nothing going on today. I kind of just have something to do, and I'm always a race fan. Once you're a racer, you're born a racer, you're always a racer, and you always like to go racing. So it's something small, affordable, and it's fun to go do. Just kind of hang out with a bunch of people, kind of try to make them better people, and competitive enough to race to maybe even one day strive to be what I'm at right now. And, it's just fun to race karts here and there every other time. But the real key, that was another reason. But the real one is that when you're racing karts, it kind of, everything happens a lot quicker because everything's such smaller capacity and speeds are obviously quick and your turns come up a lot quicker. So it kind of helps your instincts a little bit. And I've seen a bunch of like Jordan Taylor, for instance, or other guys, Oliver Askew, I will point out, other professional racers, they race, I want to say like a 125, 100cc, or even like a shifter, and they just go to these kart tracks and just, try to work on reaction time as well as keeping their hands in tune, because you have to move the wheel around so quick. And that's the same thing in like an open wheel car, is that you have to make very hard inputs into the steering and be precise with your steering inputs. And what better way to do it in a go-kart where precision steering and momentum is what's key to drive these karts fast.
Yeah, and you do drive these cars fast. So yeah, you're leading the race series here, the championship series here at the club. There's not a ton of things to adjust on the kart.
No.
There's some tire pressures, and maybe you can adjust a little bit of where the front end of the suspension, the tires go in and out. We call it when they come in. It's
camber
adjustments, and then the
toe in, toe out.
Toe in, toe out, which I'm assuming you can do on a F3, probably to a greater extent what you're trying to.
That's almost what we're doing every time, is adjusting toe in and toe out as much as we can, because there's always that difference in track layout or difference in if a little bit more toe in can make a kart faster, you have a little bit more rotation to it. So it's all within the setup when we go to adjust for toe in and toe out. But with the karts itself, you're right, there is not much to adjust. And this is one of the reasons what I like about the Margate Spec series, is that everything is basically spec with the engine. Everything's kind of sealed. There's only a limited amount of adjustments that you can do with spacer and maybe some camber adjustments here and there. But the real thing when it comes down to with the Margate series is your driving. It's all about your driving. If you work on your driving more, and if you have a good racecraft and good driving style, you're most likely going to be at the front of the pack. And with the limited amount of adjustments, it's mainly 90% driver, 10% kart. Where in other racing series, let's say in the F3, it's maybe 60% driver, 40% setup.
I see. Yeah, It was great. It was great to watch you race. My family races also, which is the next kind of thing we want to talk about. Is so you were out here. It was kind of an off week from F3 racing and practicing and testing. So we find you Thursday out at the kart track with a student.
Yep. So I was coaching with Spencer McFarland out there on Thursday. He's a young kid who's kind of got the ropes of karting last year, came into the series really not knowing too much, but trying my hardest to kind of, mentor him a little bit, show him the ropes a little bit of what you need to do, how to become fast. And then this year, he's kind of taking the initiative, thanks to your son actually moving up into the senior class. He's going for the championship this year in the Ignite Juniors. So what he wanted to do was come to me. He kind of his dad actually approached me asking if I can help him with some coaching. And I was like, sure, yeah. I mean, I wanted to give my inputs to him and just kind of spill all my knowledge that I can onto him to make him faster. And luckily enough, we were able to get him, I think, a half second to 0.7 of a second quicker than his personal best the first day I was out there with him.
Which is a big deal when we're shaving off. That's a lot onto the track. So a lap time's about 40 seconds.
Yep.
So when we're shaving that number down, that's a big number.
In cars, it could be, and it may not seem much of a number. I mean, a second is a lot, and 0.7 is quite a bit. But in karts, it's a huge difference when you shave down 0.7 because everybody's so even, and it's so hard to find even the slightest bit of tenths here and there in these karts. So, gaining 0.7 is a huge jump when you're dealing with go-karts on a racetrack.
So what is one of the things about so coaching? So you're there working with. You're not an elder statesman, right?
No.
You're 22 years old, and you dominated the first time you got in the kart. You dominated it, and you moved through, and you dominated radical racing, and now hopefully we'll get some domination here in the F3, and we're going to continue that. So that racing has progressed. So what's one of the things that you like most about coaching when you have a student? I guess we'll call them that's obviously responding well to your coaching.
Yeah.
What do you find the most rewarding part of that?
It's progress. The progress is the one thing that I've liked the most about it, is seeing where they first started Say, for instance, your daughter Caitlin, when I was coaching her the other day, started running 48-second lap times on her own. By the end of the day, we got her up to 44-second lap time, shaved 4 seconds off her time. I mean, that right there is what I like to see, is just how much time can we shave off from the last session, and then from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. The progress is what I like to see out of it. And then hopefully from there, we kind of build and build and build, and then from there, hopefully we're challenging for the lead and even the wins.
Right, and I think that, you know, your ability to communicate, I mean, we've been talking about, you know, communicating with your race team and your coaches and everything else, and your ability to communicate with these students, I think, is pretty unique. So yeah, the next day, so you went out and technically you're coaching a competitor. So my son's racing in the same division you're racing in.
Yeah.
And you're out there giving him your all, working with him the best you can be to get him the best you can be. And if the more hopefully he's pushed you a couple times.
Yeah.
And so that's only going to make you better, I think.
Well, yeah, at some points, but, you know, we state the question as well, is like, why are we coaching a competitor who's running in the same class as me? I've been doing this for like, 4 years now, started in 2016, racing these things out at this track. So I've already made myself well aware, well known, made my statement, made my mark. Obviously, you know, we're moving up to F3 and I'm kind of moving up to bigger and better things. But, you know, I want to have someone else take my place, someone else who'd be just as fast as me. So when outsiders or even like people from Margay come into our track, there's still a guy who is just as fast as me to chase them around a little bit and give them a run for their monies. So that's what my job is. So when I'm totally done with karting and I have absolutely no time to come out and do the races, there's someone at the helm who's able to take my place and be able to run just as fast as me and be able to be almost like another me. And the one thing I would love to see is someone be like me who's racing in karts and almost do the exact same thing, take the exact same road and steps that I was doing to get to where I am right now.
Yeah, so moving up, so this is, you know, it isn't an entryway for that. And I just think it's great because since the first time we met you, you were always willing to help, coach, mentor, talk to everybody that's out there. And that's from a 6-year-old all the way up through a 66-year-old, and, you know, to help them out. And so we all look up to you at the kart track. What do you, so as a coach, when you're coaching somebody, so we've talked about some of the most rewarding things. What's a frustrating thing that you deal with when you're coaching somebody?
When you tell someone to do this and then they put the helmet on and then they forget everything you just said. And they go exactly against what you just said and what you wanted them to do. And then you got to do it again and again and again until you kind of beat the dead horse into their head saying, all right, let's do this, let's do that. So a good way was I'll use Spencer for an example. The entire first half of the day, he was running a different line, braking offline, technically, I would say, because I was braking a lot wider into the corner and he was braking a lot narrower. And every time I'd almost be able to kind of crisscross him back over and be able to get around him. So I kept trying to tell him, but he just wasn't listening. Eventually, we got into a huge group of karts that went out, and he was able to kind of follow somebody, because he wasn't listening to me and following me. Or if he was, I wasn't able to see it. So I was able to ride behind him, and he was able to get behind somebody else, and they were kind of doing the exact same line I was doing. And then finally, he was able to he was wanting to do what I was trying to tell him to do. And I told him afterwards, I said, what you just did that session is what I've been trying to tell you. You need to do that every single time. And I think finally that kind of clicked in his head a little bit to be able to do it, because he was doing it earlier today, which I was happy to see.
So, okay, so what are some of the things as a driver? So do you have any techniques? So when you're driving and your coach tells you to do something, how do you try to remember that? I mean, how do you focus in on that as we switch roles from you receiving information from the coach? So
the way my coach does it with me is we spill over a lot of data and information and talk about a bunch of things we can do. First things first that we kind of do is I tell him all the pinpoints of where I think I am losing time and I think I need to work on. Then we kind of look back at video and then we kind of go through and double check the boxes of if I was right, if I was wrong, or if there's another place that I need to really be paying attention to. So then we just kind of spill the information. He kind of tells me what I need to do. And there's probably I'm worried about, if you look at it, I'm worried about probably 5 to 7 corners, different corners of information of what I can do better. Now, it's kind of impossible for a driver to think about 5 to 7 things while you're driving a car. So we kind of just, each practice session, just kind of pinpoint where we need to do, take maybe 2 or 3 laps, worry about this, done, move on to the next. So maybe I go into turn 2 and says, work on your exit or middle off of the corner. I do that for the next 2 or 3 laps, done. All right, we go to turn 4, or we do it until I get it right. Then we go to turn 4 and say, work on your entry. So it's just like, we just do it as like a checklist. We do each specific spot, take care of each specific corner on the track to kind of get to the base of it. Because if you just try to do it all in one lap, it's going to be frustrating for you. You're going to be overthinking everything too much. And then if you mess something else up, you're thinking, oh, I messed everything else. So.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So you're kind of taking it bit by bit as you kind of go through there. Mm-hmm. When like today the racing, there was a lot of fast guys out there.
Yeah.
But you were just that much faster than everybody else. So it's great to see you drive, and from not only hosting your podcast here, but also being a dad of some of the guys that you're coaching. Working with my 2 kids out there. It's great because they'll listen to you, mm-hmm. and they, Caitlin especially took a lot. She needed a lot,
yeah.
And that was a pretty quick transition. Those 4 seconds came off pretty quickly. Yeah. Just the second that you started talking to mm-hmm. her and working with her.
And it's always hard for like a new person, like especially like Caitlin, who's only raced on the track like maybe twice or having had like 2 laps here and there, to be intimidated going into the track, but then you had to adapt to it very quickly because the next day you're racing on it. So, you got to try to get as much as you possibly can, and maybe, yes, Caitlin was probably maybe a second and a half off the actual pace, but that's really in her ballpark area. She needs to know where her limits were, and we need to work up to those limits. And then eventually when we get more time on the hands, which try to go over those limits and try to expound and get quicker into the area of the unknown is what we know is.
The area of the unknown. Okay. Well, I think that, we covered a lot today. Particularly, I think it's just interesting. The standouts for me is, one, you're still racing these. Yeah. You still like racing these. Yeah. You still love the competition with these.
Any professional driver, especially when you're in open wheel, goes into a kart track, goes into like a super fast kart to work on reaction, to keep your hands in motion and everything like that. So it's just another tool outside of like the simulator to keep you in tune, keep your hands in motion, and keep your reaction time up.
Yeah, that's one of my big takeaways. And the second is that your ability to be an effective communicator and with a coach. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're representing yourself well in Newman Watts Racing and Missig Performance Group mm-hmm. Racing. You're representing that very well out on the track as a coach.
Yep.
So people can see, how effective communicator you are with these other drivers. And again, whether it's a 6-year-old driver that you've worked with, I've seen you worked with, or a 66-year-old driver that's out there. I'm getting close to 66. I'm getting close to 66. So I'm knocking on the door. So I might be the oldest karter out there someday.
Maybe, yeah. But we're going to make you the fastest oldest karter.
All right. Well, thanks for watching MPG Podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right, guys. And don't forget, click on the bell that's there for notifications to get all your other podcasts. Also, be sure to look at all my social media handles to keep up with what's going on in Jordan Missig Racing, as well as our next coming race up at VIR, as well as merch is on sale. You got a shirt over here for a Missig Performance Group shirt. You got a Jordan Missig Racing hat and Jordan Missig Racing shirts that are now on sale. So be sure to either email my mom at dmissig@comcast.net to get your order in today. Perfect. And if all that stuff, just Google Jordan Missig Racing. You'll get it all on the Google slide. All of it comes up, and it's all right there. So we will see you next time when we talk about preparing for VIR. Awesome.